Welcome, everyone, to a Fortuna Admissions masterclass to help you secure your place at the business school of your dreams. In the next 60 minutes, we'll be focusing on round two MBA applications to the M7 schools. And I'm sure you're not wondering, but of course, that's HBS, Stanford, Wharton, Chicago Booth, Columbia, MIT Sloan, and Kellogg. Breathless. Now, after record volume at some of these schools in the past 18 months, the 2025-2026 admissions cycle might look different as AI impacts the job market, government policy, and a $100,000 price tag on an H-1B visa, which could test the appetite of the international market. If application volume falls sharply, this could be a once-in-a-generation chance for you to gain admission for a place in Boston, Palo Alto, Philadelphia. So stay with us to get that M7 edge. It is an ambitious schedule, but I'm joined by two superstar coaches from Fortuna, experts of what I love to call the Fortuna Dream Team. Michelle Belden. Michelle was a former MBA Admissions Associate Director at Wharton, one of our senior expert coaches, loved and extraordinarily successful. Rachel Erickson, a Stanford MBA and an alum and former GSB admissions interviewer. And similarly, people just say, you must work with Rachel for your applications to business school. So there's our team for everything that we're going to get through. And I'm Matt Simmons, one of the co-founders of Fortuna. I also host the Center Court MBA Festival with Poets and Quants, who have just been sitting down with the global admissions directors from Stanford, Columbia, and all of the schools that we're going to be discussing. I talked about a busy schedule. Well, we're going to start with what the M7 really looks for. And of course, the reflection of that, how you're going to bring your story to the table. We're looking at round two. What will that mean as we think about places for the fall of next year? And then this snapshot of each of the M7 schools, looking at what they're really looking for and each of the essays. And again, Rachel and Michelle will take you through with just a ton of insights and advice. Recommenders along the way, those important voices that are going to be adding to your own, and then some of the pitfalls that you need to be aware of. So let's start with what the M7 looks for. And of course, at this point, I've forgotten who was going to take on the first slide. I'm sure both of you remember. Rachel, Michelle, who's going to run with this one?
It's me. To, I guess, kick us off and welcome everyone. And thank you for joining us. Pretty excited as we are moving into round two. So the M7s, what are they looking for? So across all these different areas that we've listed, let's just go ahead and start with, I guess, leadership potential. So this is your opportunity to really showcase your leadership and beyond the titles, right? You could have had a formal leadership role. You could have had informal influences. So how do you want to do that is really to kind of go beyond the I led a team to really show how you've driven results, right? Show the impact you have, as we say, the initiative that you've taken, because you don't have to be given that formal hat to wear, how you've stepped up and taken on additional responsibilities, right? So really showing that quantifiable impact as well that you've brought within the company, the team. And really, as well as the collaboration that you've had with your team. And is it cross-functional? Is it, across time zones, and how you've done that? So I think one kind of focusing on that piece within the application itself as we'll go into each of the schools. Next would be, your academic readiness. So obviously across all these M7 schools, standing out, and this is the academic bucket that they'll focus on for you. And to be able to show how you've excelled with your quant skills, your analytical abilities, back from if you have had an undergrad degree within those areas, or what you're doing now at work, building models, crunching numbers, have you excelled on the GRE, GMAT? How did that look for you? Balanced with your undergraduate institution, your degree. And they're going to be looking for, signs of this, in different areas. And I'll just point out as well, and we'll get into it later, is also through letters of recommendation. So just keep that in mind, that you can kind of, really present this academic readiness you have to jump in and thrive within any of these schools, academic classes and environments. Authenticity. I love this one. I am all about, first, you're all here in October. I guess we're kind of getting to mid-October, and it's that self-awareness and taking that time to reflect on where have you been, where are you going, and really what is your sense of purpose. Really we will go into all the schools and really presenting them with this clarity of purpose of where you see your career moving. And I think that first step of reflecting on where you've been, what you've enjoyed, what you've done, where you've excelled, et cetera, is really a key step in making sure that this is brought within your application and being authentic with what do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? And obviously balancing it with this humility, right? And getting across not just your professional, accomplishments and where you want to go, but I would also bring in, which kind of goes into our next one, is the personal qualities that you have brought to your team, to an organization, to an undergraduate club, whatever it is. And that kind of moves into our next one, which is those interpersonal skills, right? How do you work within a team? Where have you been given opportunities to do that? Are you the listener? Are you the problem solver? Are you, right? Where do you see your role, and how, again, within the application, you'll be able to highlight that. EQs, the emotional intelligence. How do you show up in a room of senior executives? How do you have your voice be known? What is your presence? And finally, I would say that would be going with your communication skills. How do you best communicate, when you're in a team environment, when you're within a leader on the team? And I think being able to show that within the application is definitely something they're looking for. And then finally, well, go ahead. Yeah, Matt.
No, I'll stay with the number 5. We don't want to miss any of these.
Okay, and then we'll do the number 5, and then we'll get Rachel and Matt to jump in. Is where are you going? What is your vision, right? So that's a key component to all the applications, is to really have been thoughtful about what is my career vision? Where am I now? What have I done? Connecting the dots, if they're if they're across. But really, where is this going to lead me to? And how has my past experiences really informed where I want to go? And what kind of impact do I want to have? What kind of leader do I want to be? It's the ambitious, balanced with the realistic. If maybe the short term is more realistic, but ambitious long-term vision. And where within the world, the industry are you focused on, and what you are passionate and excited about to jump in and be a part of. There's so much going on right now, right? And to really be able to identify that and bring that to the application.
Now, I want to take that passion and excitement and share it with Rachel, because, of course, these 5 areas that we're focusing on, it can be intimidating. Oh, goodness, so beyond job titles, how do I think about this and show my authentic self? But I mean, Rachel, we often talk about really embracing this extraordinary opportunity to step back from, busy work schedules. You've studied hard, you've early parts of your career, this wonderful gift of the business schools to say, hey, we really invite you to think about these things. That's something I think that you're very mindful of when you're working with candidates.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like one of the sort of biggest compliments that I get as a coach is when people say, wow, I really had no idea that I actually was going to do all this self-reflection during my essays. And then I've had a couple of people say, right before I started business school, I went back and I read through my essays because I felt like they really captured me, who I am, what I want to get out of this experience, what I want to do with my life. And, people are sometimes so focused on, oh, what do business schools want me to say? And they really, I mean, that is absolutely the wrong approach. It should be, what do I want to tell business schools about myself and why I am, what is special about me, what I care about, how I'm going to show up in their community. And those really authentic, honest essays that have that self-reflection where the person knows what is important about who they are that is going to be true for the rest of their lives. Those are, I think, the essays and the applications that can really stand out. So yeah, I am a big believer in self-reflection.
And perhaps just a final point with everything that Michelle has helped us to be thinking about. There are lots of different pieces of the puzzle, right? So it's not that everything has to go in this one essay or everything needs to be captured in the resume. We can think very strategically about how we share these different qualities and characteristics in different parts of the application.
That's right. Absolutely. It is all about strategy. And so therefore, Matt, I would say the other piece that you want to get ahead of is to be aware of each of the schools as we go through them, to really dive into what are they asking and how are they asking it through the different areas of their application. And I think, I don't know how much of the nitty gritty Rachel and I will get into, but the schools are, I always say some of their applications, the data forms have many short answer questions within them, some don't. So they're giving you this opportunity, and it is a never miss an opportunity to take one of their questions, and even if it's optional, if you're able to bring another dimension of who you are and share it with them. So there's, like you said, a lot of different areas. Definitely the essays will be one component and probably a major component, but some of the schools, most of them, these M7s, will give you other areas to highlight these different, your strengths, your qualities. So that is definitely something, again, to be very mindful of as you approach the process.
Yeah, Michelle, you mentioned authenticity of one of your favorites. Last week, very fortunate to sit down with the Dean of Admissions at Columbia, the Global Admissions Director at Stanford GSB, and we talked about this. The fundamental message that I took away was being you. So I asked both of them, can they tell if candidates have been using LLMs, GPT, Claude, and others for the applications? Like, oh yeah, oh yeah. And I said, well, does it help? I said, no. No, really, to find that personal voice, that Rachel was describing. So there's a lot to cover, and our focus is going to be on round two, which of course is about 10 days through the beginning of January. Some of the realities that we're faced with, other candidates that might already be in the pool from round one. So talk us through what we're pulling together and what we perhaps need to be aware of as we look at those round two January deadlines.
Sure. So as you said, round two is often the largest round at the M7s. That's just reality. You have all of the people who were always planning and applying in round two. You have the people who were going to apply in round one, but they didn't get the GMAT score they wanted, or they are waiting on a promotion at work because they think that's going to enhance their application. Then you have the people who maybe applied to schools in round one, just a couple, but it didn't work out for them. So they're now in the round two pool. And then you have the last minute people coming in. So it's a really big round, but don't despair, because the good news is that the business schools know it's going to be a really big round, and they have a lot of spaces for round two. They don't always know what volume they're going to get, but they know they're going to be taking a significant percentage of their class in round two. And so they are prepared for that. A couple of things, though, that do make round two a little more challenging, or just take a little bit more control out of your hands, is the fact that the class is partially filled with round one. And this plays out in a couple of different ways. The first is that you're going to have some people who have gotten deferred from round one, or have been waitlisted at schools in round one. And they are very definitely comparing the round two applicants to those round one applicants and trying to smooth out any differences. So if there is a stronger round one candidate on the wait list, that round one candidate's going to get in over you. But notice I said if they're stronger. If you're the stronger applicant, then you're the one who's going to get in. So keep that in mind. Once again, the strongest candidates are what they're really looking for. But the other area where it can also come into play is in round one. They're kind of looking mostly for the best possible applicants, and across a range of profiles. But in round two, part of the class is already set because they've admitted people, and they may be oversubscribed in common profiles where they've already got a lot of private equity people because they had some really good applicants in round one and they're in. Or maybe somebody from this is actually can happen, somebody from the same department at the same company has already applied in round one and been accepted. That's going to make it that much harder for your application to get in, because you have to then clearly show what you add to the class that's different. So you lose a little bit of control over that in round two, because it's really, they're shaping their class and they're looking at that. And so you have to fit in with the parameters of a class. But the good news is that also could conceivably work for you once again, if at this point, they know most of their applicant pool. And if they're like, we're really looking for this profile and we don't have enough of it, then if you fit that profile, that might give you a slight bit of an edge. But once again, these are just things that are not quite under your control the way that in round one, where you're sort of starting with a more clean slate.
Right. Michelle, we've often heard, someone saying at the BlackRock office in New York, two of my colleagues that got a place in round one, and how, um, with your time at Wharton, would you also think with round two, why didn't this candidate apply in round one, or was that never an issue?
Honestly, for me, it was never an issue. So again, I also, another way to look at it for everyone tuning in today is the admissions committee is looking, they want to admit you, right? So again, they are very positive looking. So I wasn't looking for, why didn't this person apply, round one? I look at it as, this is my round two application pool. Let me read this candidate from beginning to end. Nothing is going to dissuade me to really, again, get a understanding of their entire profile. Now, if something gets flagged in the sense of, and it is round two, and it's a maybe GMAT GRE that maybe isn't quite as strong, and I look at the test date, maybe it's a, I would have loved for them to maybe retake it, and it looks like they had time, or maybe I could see that maybe that is they just took the GMAT GRE again in December, and maybe again, which is, showing me that they wanted to be the most prepared. That could be a reason why not round one. By the end of the day, again, we have already set our round one, who we've admitted, and we understand what our buckets, how we've been filled, with industry, backgrounds, global, international students, men, women, etc. But really, we're still first looking for extremely strong candidates across the qualities we just went over. So it's not something that I overthought about. It was really like, let me see what they're presenting me with. What is their story, their experiences? And then, but to Rachel's point about round two realities, it is round one is a little tougher because you're not quite sure what you're going to get in round two and what so this is okay, we know what we've gotten in round one. So you got to really bring it. So I think that's what we're going to get to. And I know by the end of this conversation is, if nothing else, don't do last minute, don't do rush, which hopefully everyone tuning in October is not going to do, because you got to put your best foot forward to be in the conversation from all these M7s, right? So
If periodically through this workshop, Michelle, you could repeat the phrase, "You've got to bring it." I think all of us are going to feel very motivated with that one.
okay.
And perhaps just one final point, Rachel, you'd been speaking to the wait lists, and of course, we have a lot of close connections with the schools in a very uncertain year. And I think that schools will be running a longer wait list of applicants from round one as they look both, domestically, US applicants, but also in the international pool, because policies and other things that are shifting markets. So perhaps, being very mindful of that wider context that you were both sharing. So now the ambition. We've got 7 schools, and we're going to get through all of them, looking at both the qualities, characteristics, and of course the essays, where they really want to hear that authentic voice. We're going to start with Harvard Business School.
Woo, I can't believe we're starting here. Okay. I'm going to tell you, everyone out there, if you're doing multiple schools, I never have my clients start with HBS. I'm just going to be honest. There's a lot going on here. But thankfully, year 2 we're in. They actually have 3 essays with prompts. So, it's going to guide you a little better than it had been with the old question. So HBS, okay, looking for habit of leadership. Okay, right, they are habit of leadership, community engagement, intellectual curiosity. They are a general management education. They are breeding, they are building future business leaders, right? Okay, so now they have their 3 essays, a leadership, a growth, and a business minded. So they're really looking for these, common characteristics, throughout these essays that they are presenting with you to get to know you and understand, what you've done. What have been your past experiences? How have they shaped your perspectives? What have you done? Why have you done it? Where are you going? Right? Okay. So we'll jump in first. We have the leadership essay. And this is really the leadership one I enjoy, and I want people to understand and think about it in the sense of how you lead, right? And when they say, how do you invest in others? And it's definitely first word we put here, it's a showing, don't tell them, right? So it's really identifying a story and how you've done it. So we say, invest in others, if you've elevated others. And sharing these stories, and again, how you influence the growth that you've had in through these experiences. Again, evolving leadership, and it's beyond the titles. Because again, a lot of us haven't or a lot of candidates maybe even haven't had that title given to them, but it's something that they have really, pursued and really taken on. Because I think if nothing else, HBS really one of their, part of their mission statement is they are really educating leaders, right? They want their leaders to make a difference in the world. So if you keep that in mind and how you approach this essay about leadership, again, going back and really, as Rachel does with her clients, really reflecting on your leadership stories and brainstorming which ones, do you what have you done? Which ones do you really want to highlight, and how can that tell us of, really how you've done this and showing that through this leadership essay. And then we go to the growth essay, which I find very interesting when they added this. And I think it's a true reflection of their classroom environment in the sense of they want to really understand, who you are as a learner, right? And you need to be able to reveal that to them. And really a reflection, this one, some people have a more difficult time, but to think about back to your stories of to show, and I think I highlighted it, is they are very interested in your intellectual curiosity. So this is their curiosity essay. And how that curiosity, where in your life, if you reflect, has really, provided you with that personal growth, right? Has it changed you, the way you see things, how you interact with other people? And again, this example, this story, will really be able to reveal, again, that mindset that you have, your openness to new ideas, to learning. And I think it's really being able to provide that evidence that you are looking or pursuing, always being actively growing and learning, that you are curious, if it was in the classroom as an undergrad, if it's within a professional setting, but that, this is something that you're always going to pursue, a driving force to learn and grow. And I think even seeking out, again, if you think in a classroom, new ideas, new ways to see things. And, have you pushed yourself outside your comfort zone? Do you embrace, diversity of thought? So this is really your opportunity, again, to help to show them and to really provide, showcase, what kind of learner you are and how you've had, curiosity. So I think this is an interesting essay that, again, is really complements who Harvard, is and who they're seeking. And then finally, here we go. The business-minded essay. This is like, where have you been? What have you done? Where are you headed, right? But I think for them, it's really, to make sure candidates know, it is really, though, a focus on the choices you've made. So again, they'll have your resume, they'll be able to read it, but this is really, like we say, connecting those past experiences and how, this is really showing where are you headed, right? So in those career goals. But I will tell you, they are more interested in your past decisions you've made, the path you've taken, and then to highlight where you're going. They have a question within the application that will just be on your professional goals. So this shouldn't be a half the essay, 2/3 of the essay is on where I'm going. This is definitely a highlighting where have you been, the impact that you've made, within organizations, within your communities. And again, how these experiences informed where are you going next, right? And again, so I think this business-minded is really your opportunity to, again, give them the evidence of intention. If you've been very intentional if you've been at the same company and the roles you've had, if you've moved from this organization to this and the opportunities be given, what have you learned? What have you gained? And how has that really helped giving you clarity about what do you want to do? We talked about earlier is, what you're excited to go move into and do next. And that's what they really want insight into by providing you with this business-minded essay.
Right. Now, Rachel will naturally be taking us to the West Coast as we turn to Stanford. But just before we go there, Michelle, just a couple of thoughts I'd love to follow up on. You talked about self-awareness, and it strikes me as we think about a moment of curiosity and personal growth, connecting past experience, right there, it's really, think deeply, not just the first thing that comes to mind. And perhaps the second thing, if you can consider both of these, is also where the essays fit in the rest of the application, and perhaps recommenders that might also be talking about how you elevate others, where you've had influence and growth. So always being mindful of other parts of your story that a recommender might be sharing. So an intense level of self-reflection within this wider pieces of the application puzzle.
Yeah, and it's really a mapping out of your stories, right? So there's one, like if you just mentioned your recommenders, Harvard still has two. So again, who have you chosen? What will they be highlighting about you? And being really thoughtful about that. You've, guiding them in the sense of providing them with what you would like them to speak to, your problem solving, your right. And then understanding, okay, I think this is where they will be, again, what stories they'll highlight and what projects I've done, et cetera. And then HBS again has very comprehensive data forms that ask you about the roles you've had, your biggest accomplishment. So again, okay, I'm gonna already, this is my point of going through the application. What am I already telling them through these parts? And now as I look at the essays, and reflecting and like Rachel, brainstorming with the clients, like what are the stories you have? Which ones do I now want to bring to these essays to build out who I am and what I've done and what I'm excited about and is where I'm headed, right? So it is a strategic, as you said, and you got to be very mindful, and it is going to take time.
Right. It's the second year of the Harvard essays, and already they've slightly tweaked them. But I think it's the 22nd year, Rachel, of the GSB iconic essay. But before we get to those essays, that sense again of personality, of culture, of the place, qualities that really thrive at the GSB.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to sort of touch on something Michelle said, and that you mentioned about that building the puzzle, or building the application, putting the puzzle pieces together, being really strategic about what goes where, because Stanford's application is massive. And I think people don't realize how much you have to write for it. And it's really important to think about all of the different pieces that you want to share about yourself, and then what does go where. So I'm going to start with what we call the optional essays, but they are not optional. These are in the application form itself. So you might, if you're just leaving the application to the end, you might not stumble across them until really late in the process, which is a mistake because they're hugely important, and they're hugely important to figure out how these questions fit then with your main essays and the rest of your application. So the first question is literally the very first question on the application, which is asking you to talk about your background and how that has affected the choices that you've made and the actions you've taken. And the thing about this is people sometimes think, well, my background isn't anything special. It's not anything interesting. Literally every person on the planet can answer this question. Your background might be your family growing up had a process where you all collaborated together to plan family trips. And that process is the same process that you bring to work when you're working with your colleagues to figure out how to solve a problem. That's a background. It doesn't have to be your cultural identity. It can be something about your cultural identity or where you grew up or how you grew up, but it can also be something really simple and basic. So whatever you do, think of that as that's your introduction to the reader. So it's also really important that you put something there that gives them some context for knowing who you are, knowing what you care about, knowing what you're like, and really understanding you. And then the second set of optional questions Stanford has, and I actually think these are great questions, is they ask you to give 3 examples of times when you have had an impact on your work or extracurricular community. And once again, what Stanford is doing here is they don't want you to use your personal essays to tell them all the amazing things that you have done. They want you to tell them this here. So this is your chance to really show off, like, here are my 3 most incredible accomplishments. I want to knock your socks off with these. And when you're writing them, though, you got to remember that you have to, it's very short word count, so you have to give them, there are a couple things I think you have to give them. The first is you do have to give a little bit of context. Why does this matter? What is the problem that is trying to be solved? What is the issue that you want to make better? Then you need to be very clear about what you did to tackle this issue, not what your team did. This is actually one essay where you don't want to use we. You want to be very clear about your role. So yes, you have permission to use I here. And then finally, you have to talk about the impact that you had. And once again, this doesn't have to be numbers. Sometimes it is, and that's great. But other times it's qualitative. Maybe it was a change in culture. There's no way to quantify a change in culture, but give examples or give specific story to end it that shows how you maybe took a team that was dysfunctional and turned it into one that was really harmonious and effective, and what you were able to do as a result of that to really show how you make a difference personally in the organizations you're a part of. So I think these optional essays are so crucial to the Stanford application. I often feel like they're a little bit make or break. If these aren't strong, then it's sort of, you don't necessarily, these need to be strong to sort of make the case that you have this fantastic work experience. And then they're going to be really excited to dive into your main essays. The main essays are, the first one is this question, what matters most to you and why? And this is where they're not looking for your accomplishments. They're looking for a personal story. And what I say about this essay is it's much less about the what, because that's pretty universal. There's a lot of people care about their community, their family, making a difference in the world, being the best that they can be. There's sort of a bunch of, maybe 20 or 30 sort of universal things that people care about. But the why is always, if you do it properly, completely personal to you. It's your reasons based on your unique identity. And the only thing that really is unique in any application is you, the person. And so the more that you can capture who you are and the full richness of who you are, the more your application is going to be unique. And then finally, there's the Why Stanford essay, which is that career vision essay. And here, it's a little bit different from that Harvard one. So you're not going to just be able to copy and paste, because they're also asking you to talk about why Stanford. And what I say with the Why Stanford piece is that you want to always make sure that you are talking about you. If you're writing a sentence that is something other people could write about a class, for example, then cross that sentence off. Instead, maybe say, I saw the senior people at my company do this particular thing and show this particular skill that I don't have and want to learn, and I'm going to learn it in this class. Because that shows that you know what you're going to learn in the class, but without repeating the course description and actually telling them more about you. So that's the way that I like to, one piece of advice I like to give when you're tackling that essay. So that's just a couple of pointers for the Stanford application and those Stanford essays.
And thank you for starting us with the optional essays, this sense of getting to know the candidate. Rachel, when we think about 7 or even 8,000 applicants for 430 places in the Stanford MBA classroom, this sense of getting to know you is a key part of that, to say, we want to meet this candidate for interview. Because at that point, now we're down to a much smaller group. Not because you're charming, but with word limits, you're nevertheless conveying characteristics, personality, those accomplishments. Are you also trying to make Stanford curious and want to find out more?
Of course, yes. But you want them to be curious about you, but I think most you want them to be excited to meet you and excited to have you on the campus.
Yeah, great. Well, let's take that excitement with us to Wharton. I know that we Brits never quite pronounce the word Wharton as we should, but a place, Michelle, of course, that you know and love, and another great school with its own distinct personality. So tell us more and what the school is looking for.
Yep. So Wharton is, looking for, they are a team-based collaborative culture. Even though people might not think that, and they might have heard differently, it is true. And their application and their interview process reflects that. And that is, they are looking for people that are going to come in and join and lift others up and learn from each other and go and do great things, right? And most importantly, enter with a clear vision and sense of purpose is no more applicable and evident with their changed essays this year. So finally, after many years, like you said, Stanford, bless them, have not changed the main essays in a while. Wharton really hadn't. They kind of had gotten it down, especially essay 2 and the wording, and we've enjoyed it. And then they presented us with something new. No problem, because what I think they are sending the message is with the goals and the Wharton fit essay. I actually would kind of disagree. I don't know if it's a Wharton fit. It is tell us about how you see your career unfolding. Where are you headed? So I'll call them 2 short essays that you are divining very clearly for them with very minimal word count. short-term goals, post-MBA, job right after school, 3 to 5 year plan. They really want to understand, again, the why behind it. So why does this path matter to you? And for me, therefore, I think the context of what have I done that's informed this next move for me and this vision of how my path is going to, where it's going to lead me to, is key to making sure that you have done your job with the first 2 questions about your goals. And so again, this is something that is new, that they have just, I'll say, tweaked in a sense. They definitely had the goals essay, but it was a longer essay with the, and how's Wharton going to help you achieve those goals? For me, they've taken out the Wharton. I think for them, it's we have seen, well, from what they have told us, that the success of their students and what they've tracked, whatever, I think is the people that are really showing that success is that they have really presented, again, the reflection and understanding of what they want to do, the impact they want to make, the leader they want to become. And for Wharton, there's many different things going on. The healthcare management program, Lauder, the interdisciplinary opportunities at the University of Pennsylvania through Wharton, the Venture Lab. So therefore, honing in on what is you are excited about, passionate about, and what you've done and where you're going will show them how you are going to come in really purposefully benefit from their program and their offerings. Okay, so I'll start that's the goals, right? Then they have left the same longer essay too. They've shortened it a little bit, 350 words, but this is the contribution essay. And this is when we had the 2 essays going back, we would always say the second essay is all about, the first essay was what are you going to take? But this is now, the focus is it's still important to them. What are you bringing? Again, to our collaborative, engaging community. So you need to really be able to, again, reflect, think about your stories. What have you done? Where have you made impact? What's been important to you? And how are you going to bring that unique energy and perspective to their campus through a club, in the classroom? And this is when I talk to my clients about this, again, some people struggle with exactly should it just be professional? Should it be the personal, my community engagement? But it's really if you are sitting in a classroom, what seat are you filling for Wharton in the sense of how are you, by extension, influencing, contributing, and really enhancing the experience of your classmates? Because that's what it's all about. Wharton's getting close to 900 students. They are a big class. So where are you coming in and what are you bringing? So I think we highlight here, really be able to think thoughtfully again about what have you done that you can speak. It's 350 words. So you gotta think about if you have different themes and how strategically what you want to highlight, but what have you done? And then you do need to do your homework and research on where do you see yourself contributing? It can be, again, it can be within a club, an organization, an initiative, a conference, venture lab, but you do need to specifically point out, I would love to, and to Rachel's point, not just mentioning it, right? Like anyone can say that, but how do you see, given your experiences, your background, what you can come and how you can influence, contribute, bring new ideas. I love a lot of people's ideas of bringing 2 clubs together and having them work together to do this. And I will also finally point out is I also believe that there's any way that you have been a participating member, impactful member of your community, there is a community of Philadelphia that surrounds this university that is very important to them. And there's many clubs, initiatives that are going on. And if that's something that speaks to you that you've done in your past, mention it, bring it up, speak to it. That is something, and I think that is very, it has to be authentic and honest, but it's something that you see yourself coming to this. Again, Philadelphia is not for everyone. I will just say that, right? But it is a very special place. And I think if you can, in places that you've been and you've really can have demonstrated that, and that's something that is something you're going to prioritize, here's the place to do it. Wharton, compared to some other schools, their data forms, as we've just left Harvard and Stanford, are a little bit more minimal. Don't have all the areas to give all this. I kind of love Stanford. I say they have 6 essays, Rachel. I'm like, it's a lot. Like there's a lot going on. Wharton is a little lighter. So use this opportunity through these essays. They do give you the opportunity to list your, community engagement and activities, but think about this contribution essay of what you are proud of, what you've been excited to be doing, and how you see yourself showing up and bringing that as a student at Wharton.
Right. From what you're sharing, Michelle, I wanted to explore with you, Rachel, what the admissions office already knows about their school. So whether it's for Wharton, we talked about the healthcare management program. There's the Lauder Innovation and Entrepreneurship. Harvard has the case method. They've been doing it for 104 years. There's the interpersonal dynamics touchy-feely elective at Stanford. That's the most popular in the last 45 years. And it strikes me that sometimes candidates are so eager to tell the school that they know those things, that this club exists or this particular elective, but fail to share the why and why that would matter to me.
Yeah, I mean, so much so. And what I always say is like, look, you cannot tell the schools anything about their courses, their curriculum, their program that they don't already know. The only thing you can tell them about that they don't know is something about you. So don't bother to describe interpersonal dynamics. Explain why that course is crucial to your success as a future leader, for you personally. And that's going to be a lot more interesting for them to read. And it's also then taking that very precious real estate and space that you have and using it to share more about you and like all of the things that you are able to do already and where you're looking to grow.
Yeah. Now, if I extend that round two, perhaps an applicant applied to one or two schools in round one, and now they're considering Chicago Booth. As you said earlier, Donna, Colin, they know everything about their program. So it's not then saying, okay, what am I going to tell them about Booth? Again, getting behind the school. So to share more about the school and what it is that they're looking to understand about the candidate.
Yeah, I always say that the why school piece of this is kind of a Trojan horse to fit in more information about you. And you can even use something where you're saying like, this is an area where I need to grow, but like explain what you've already done, for example, and then build on that with, but now I want to develop this skill further so that you're getting in a little bit of maybe something that you have accomplished. The Stanford, or sorry, the Chicago. So actually, one of the things that's interesting is I think that Booth and Stanford, their applications overlap nicely with each other in terms of themes and stories and ideas. But Booth very much requires taking a step back and thinking about how you want to use those themes and ideas that you might have explored in Stanford in the way that fits the Booth application. And you really have to rework everything to get it to fit. And don't just think that you can take that, career vision essay and plop it in. One of the first things about Booth is, of course, the wonderful fact that there is no maximum word count, unlike almost every other school out there these days. And this is great, but also remember, they are giving you enough rope as an applicant to hang yourself with. If you give them a 2,000-word essay, they're going to go, this person doesn't show good judgment. They've thrown the kitchen sink at us. They don't understand how to communicate what's important. So even though they give you this unlimited space, you want to be ruthless in both the goals essay and the photo essay about paring it down to the story that is important, the narrative that is important, the ideas that are essential to communicate to the school and that really fit together. And in some ways, it's even trickier because you have to be your own editor. You can't just rely on the word count to force you to cut things down. So once again, with that goals essay, really show that you understand Booth, but always show that you understand Booth in the context of your what your experience is and where you need to grow. And then for the photo essay, this is also, it's a great opportunity to show what's personal. You can use similar themes to that Stanford What Matters Most essay if that's one that you've already done, but you need to write it and you need to personalize it for Booth. And then you also need to think when you're putting these essays together about what pieces might have been somewhere else in another application that you need to try to fit seamlessly into the Booth essay. And beware of making a Franken essay where you've kind of like just shoved different pieces of an essay together. It has to be a seamless narrative and you need to really spent a lot of time, thought, effort, and consideration to get that there.
Hmm. What's the order on this one? When it says, this photo, and use it as a springboard to tell a meaningful story. Should we have the story in mind and work backwards to the photo, or does it really originate with the photo?
I'd say you probably know what you want to say about yourself, or you should know what you want to say about yourself, and then find a story or a photo that fits that. The photos are very generous in terms of what they communicate, and you know who you are, and then find the photo that you think is best going to reflect that.
Right. And it's not getting lost on image quality. If it's you and your sister, if it puts you in this setting and it's global discovery and adventure, great. It can have the Eiffel Tower or Uluru, but the idea is to then move it towards what it's actually saying about you.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Now, just down the road, only 45 minutes, another great school, but a very different school, Northwestern and Kellogg. Perhaps the we that we mentioned earlier often comes to mind with Kellogg, very collaborative. So tell us more and how they've approached an application to get to know more about the candidate.
Yeah, so Kellogg, definitely collaborative environment, team-based. They are also very values driven. And I think they're also they love the brave leadership. They've moved away. They used to have two essays that were based on past experiences, but now they also want to get on the bandwagon and do the why Kellogg. But they've thrown a lot in the why Kellogg question. So there is a lot to cover. But going off of what Rachel just said with the Chicago booth one, it is very similar approach. And then definitely highlighting the Kellogg aspects as you move into that part of the essay, besides just telling, where have you been, your motivations and what your goals are, is really how does Kellogg, again, how is it going to benefit you in achieving those goals to really align with, as you see, collaboration and the offerings that they have. And therefore, the thing that I want to make sure that people don't miss out on with this essay is really the focus that there's a lot, I think, aspects of the question. I've actually done it that I bullet point out for my clients. You have to make sure you are answering all these aspects in this one essay of 450 words. Is the contribution that, again, going to the Wharton, a second essay, what will you be bringing and contributing as a Kellogg student? And more so in a catalyst as for your growth. And I think for them, again, they are all about lifelong learners. And therefore, how are you going to enhance the learning of your classmates for the 2 years that you're there? But I think for Kellogg, as well as an alum, it's a lifelong learner. How do you see yourself contributing to being part of their community for the 2 years and beyond? It's a huge investment. And how do you see that? And again, this is like probably a short paragraph, a couple sentences, but my point is this is definitely something that they want to understand how you see yourself continuing to evolve. Going to the growth essay with HBS, right? That you are, curious and how you'll give back and how you see how you will show up and bring that. So making sure you do focus on that contribution piece within this first MBA why Kellogg essay, I think is really going to, again, elevate and really, besides just telling them what you've done, what you want to do, what I'm bringing and who I'll be and how I'll be part of your community that I'm really excited about. And then the second question, which has been a very similar question that they've had, is tell us about a time, right? So this is identifying leadership. You've had a tough decision to make, a difficult, it should be I would say a professional decision. And how did your values guide you? So again, I think we talk about, you really are looking to demonstrate, again, your leadership style. How did you approach this, challenge? Who did you speak to? How did you reflect? What were your actions? How were you resilient? Did you show empathy to teammates? What did you take into account to go what you did next? And again, it's the showing. It's just like, I did this, then this, then this. It's how did you reflect and then make the decision to problem solve? And how do you go about problem solving, right? And ultimately, your key takeaways and learnings are always important. And then to remember that you are looking to align yourself with the Kellogg values, right? Was there collaboration involved? Did you have to, go up to a manager, or did you have to speak to a team member that wasn't pulling their weight? And how did you approach that? And I think the reflection on how you would define maybe your leadership style, or how this experience has informed what type of leader you hope to be. So I think this is a great opportunity to show them, past experience is the best indicator of your future performance and success. And this is really, again, Kellogg used to have two, behavioral based essays, and now they have the one. So it is important to really show them, how do I lead under pressure? How do, inclusive leadership, and all those areas that they're looking to kind of get more insight into. What kind of experiences have you had, and have you grown from them?
Yeah, as we've been going through the workshop, a few minutes ago, we just had what matters most to you and why, an essay that hasn't moved. When the questions are getting longer, or maybe it's my eyes are getting weaker, but I look at these two, Michelle, and I actually, for me, it's a GPT prompt. And the candidate will say, okay, GPT, I'm going to reflect on my motivations, goals, why now's the right time. I need to time my journey to Kellogg's culture. And there's a lot of, what do we call them, road signs in these. Now, throw that into Claude or Chat GPT, and presumably everybody's answer is the same, right? That must be one of the challenges. You can't prompt your way to a good response here.
No, because I think it's like, how did you, and why did you approach that or make that decision? How did you move forward from that difficult, we were, again, maybe our timeline was Friday, we were never going to make it. What were we going to do? Like, ChatGPT could give you well, did you do this? And like, you know what I'm saying? But like, I think that's where, and I think you go back to, the forum you just had, and that they can really tell if you've written it or not, is I'm going to say, tell them the struggles, tell them how it made you feel. Like they say it's a difficult decision. Show them why it was difficult. And the struggle, you had two choices, and you decided, again, your values. So you do have to also define, what are your values? ChatGPT can't tell you that. Sure, it could help you. Like, again, maybe, but at the end of the day, I would say that's the brainstorming, the reflection of, identifying the right story to use for this essay, and the why. So really understanding why it was difficult. What did I have to do? In a situation that could be very new, or did you draw on a past experience? Or are you someone that, the inclusivity, I talk about being inclusive, is I brought other people in. I didn't have all the right answers. Does that make sense? We needed to collaborate. I needed to understand what the problem was, why I wasn't getting the information from that department, right? Like, so I'm not saying ChatGPT can't do it for you, but I think if you can be as true to yourself to be able to speak to how you have done things and why you do it that way, that's your personal qualities and how you approach problem solving. That's, to Rachel's point, like, everyone's that's what your goal is, to tell them how you do things. ChatGPT doesn't know how you do things.
Yeah.
Well,
would you agree?
Yeah, please, Rachel.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and say, like, any good essay for any of these schools has to be incredibly specific.
Yeah.
And literally the one thing that ChatGPT does not have is the specifics about what you were talking about, your background, your history, your story, these experiences. And without those specifics, the essay is just meaningless.
Yeah, just sort of homogeneous, like anybody else's. Yeah. Well, of mind and hand, Manus and Manus at MIT Sloan, and an application, Rachel, that really doesn't look like the others, does it?
No. The great thing about MIT is that it is usually the last one, because it does use the same themes and ideas you're communicating about yourself, but in a completely different way. And it is super high level. And in the interest of time, also, I'm going to try to also be high level. The cover letter, it's 300 words. It's super short. Unlike all these other things, essays where we've been saying, give us the details, you don't have room for that here. You have to hit them over the head with the point. You have to say, I was able to bring two feuding divisions together and collaborate because I listened to their concerns and found a way, da da da, I'm going to bring that to MIT. You need to show your impact, you need to show your leadership, you need to show your accomplishments, but in this very high level, brief, concise way. Then you get to the video essay. I'm just going to say, write out a script ahead of time. That script should be 150 words. If it's 180 words, I promise you, it's too long. You're going to be speaking so quickly that you don't have a chance to share your personality. Once again, it's think about the one or two most important things about who you are that you want to get across and that what you would want to communicate to the Sloan community, and write about those and drop everything else. And then finally, the background essay, similarly to Stanford, anyone can answer this, but even if you've written the Stanford one, you might not want to use that story. You should think about the most important thing that you haven't put elsewhere in the MIT application and write an essay about that. Find a way to tie it to your background to get that element of you into the application, because MIT's application is super streamlined. It's similar to Wharton. It's very tailored. And then these other elements are so different. They don't allow you to do much storytelling. So you know what you want to say at this point. You know what's important about you. And now you have to choose incredibly wisely what the brief examples are that you're going to use to say it.
Right. And we'd said right at the beginning that round two for many candidates, this is their last shot at getting a place for the fall of next year. So if you do have 3, 4, 5 schools that you're looking at putting together, following Rachel's advice and really breaking it down, thinking, school by school, what is specific to this institution. We've almost reached, well, we are at our last school, Columbia Business School, that used to get you to watch a video about New York. The music was terrible, of course it was, all about New York and the heart of business.
Yes.
What should we know about Columbia Business School?
Yeah, and I'll do also very high level. I think Columbia, I mean, they are in New York City. They are in New York City, and they're in New York City, right? So that's what you need to know and why you want to be part of that. They have continued to have a 500-word essay all about your career goals. This is your opportunity to not tell them everything that you've done. The whole point is to give some context and then to really dive into where's your path going to lead you? And they really want to understand that. And this is, ultimately you can end with, how Columbia Business School will be the launch pad for that. But this is all about your goals. They have a new essay. So the next 2 essays are 250 words. The new one about collaboration and inclusion. So again, you only have space probably for one story. And I love that we say, use the STAR method to go ahead and present this. And again, it goes back to how have you made a team more collaborative, inclusive, cohesive, lift others up. So again, identifying that story. And then finally, they have reworded this as co-creating your experience as part of the Columbia Business School community. And this is not only a why Columbia, but really that you have done your homework and research. And again, with 250 words, being every sentence adds value and is specific to you about what you are selecting, about the offerings and that's how you are going to co-create your experience there that really will align with your goals is so important. And I think an aspect which I started this, do not miss out on the fact that they are located in New York City, but more how you will take advantage of that opportunity and how how you, especially with their new Manhattanville campus. But I think, and if you can really specify so clearly their offerings, that's how you hit this one out of the park. Because of all the schools, Columbia loves the love. Give it to them. Tell them how you see yourself being part of their community and really being able to become the person you want to become and really take your career where you want it to go by what they offer. So I'll end it there.
Yeah, we said at the beginning, enjoying this opportunity to apply to business school. We didn't say be self-indulgent. And I think both of you have emphasized, this need of being intentional. Each sentence, does it really then capture, whether it's New York, even if Booth doesn't have a word limit, to streamline and really get to the essence. I know a lot of the work that you do with candidates really focuses on that. Recommenders have those limits too. Now, what I suggest, we'll just go again high level because there are some incredible previous webinars that we've recorded just dedicated to recommenders, who you might choose, how we're looking to work with them. Just to complete this round 2 M7 review, let's run through each of these and then we'll be drawing to an end. So those recommenders, making sure that they're available over the holiday season.
Yes. Yes, that's so important. Give them early deadlines because they're going to be thinking about holidays and family. Around December 22nd, they're checked out. Also, are very important is choose a recommender who knows your work well. It should either be your direct supervisor or somebody who has really seen your work up close and personal. Titles don't matter. It's about finding someone who can really advocate for you and for what an incredible person you are and what an incredible addition you're going to be to the class. And then give them some suggestions and advice. Give them some context for some stories you might want them to cover. Mention growth that you have seen, that you think you have experienced, but then also guide them with talking points, but don't tell them what to say. And one of the things I often recommend is framing things as a question. Like, can you explain the challenges that I faced in that problem and what skills you think I brought to it that allowed me to succeed in doing X, Y, and Z? So that you're giving them a little bit of room, you're guiding them, but you're giving them a little bit of room within that context. You're not putting words, I showed strategic thinking in their mouth. You're letting them find the words to articulate what it is that you demonstrated that makes you a successful and unique leader.
Yeah, touching base with them, thanking them, getting this all done in time for round 2. As I said, that there's several extraordinary sessions just dedicated to recommendations in Knowledge's Research Centre. So do search them out on the website. And of course, we don't want to trip up. We're thinking, round 2, this is big. But nevertheless can fall into some of those common sort of mistakes. Which of them, perhaps Rachel and Michelle, if you each picked one of them and said, not this one, what would you choose?
Let me see.
Ooh, I'll go with rushed prep.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
mean, this is not college applications. You cannot do them all over Christmas break. Don't even try. If you're applying a Christmas break, cut your list down and way, way, way down. And just if you're going to apply with a thoughtful, well done application to fewer schools.
Totally agree. And then I will take recycling any essays, which goes with the lack of tailoring to the school's culture and fit. It's so evident and it will just kill you from the beginning. So yes, if you've applied round 1, let's say, and you want to use the themes and the stories. And I think Rachel even pointed out that you can, like, from Stanford to Booth, but you take that and they're like, okay, what is this school's prompt asking? And then tailoring it to that prompt, but more specifically is also, again, the culture of that school. And so if you don't understand that and you haven't done your homework and research, again, it will be very evident. And it will just, with these M7s, it's already so competitive that it's tough to get over that. So you need to go to Rachel's point, give yourself the time to, really put those together and be thoughtful about it.
Yeah. And I also,
no, please go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, every school's application is different and information goes in different places in every school. And every essay has to be thought of in the context of that overall application. And that takes a lot of time to get that right and give yourself the time to put all of the pieces together.
With a hop and a skip, a lot of our phone calls at the moment, these wonderful free consultations where candidates did apply in round 1 and they said it was a rush, there was the GMAT or the GRE to take care of. Luckily, I had Labor Day that gave me 24 more hours outside of the office, but boom, I just about made those deadlines. And then they're ready to put all of that together again in round 2. This is a wonderful opportunity to step back and look at what you submitted and really, with the sort of advice that Rachel and Michelle have been sharing, to get that insider insight and expertise. There's a reason why I call them a dream team. And if we're thinking about that time frame between now and those January deadlines, I promise you that 30 minutes, 40, 45, however long it takes, the time that we'll take in that free consultation will be worth days, weeks of a head start. Whether it's the thoughts about the recommenders to choose, again, based on what Rachel was saying, your why, as Michelle has emphasized, that authenticity that we're really, these free consultations are just the industry gold standard. They're off the charts. We take the time to look at your profile so that we can have a really substantive and meaningful discussion to get you on the road. So, my colleagues, I get to ask them so many questions given their Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, INSEAD, London Business School backgrounds. They're an incredible, incredible source. So please sign up for a free consultation. We think that it'll be a wonderful opportunity. And I think that pretty much brings us to an end. The Q&A. Save those questions if you're reapplying, if you're thinking about these schools. Next week, we'll be looking at international schools, the growing demand that we're seeing for INSEAD and for London Business School and other great schools outside of the US. That will be with some of the Fortuna co-directors, Caroline, who was the head of admissions at INSEAD, Emma, who was the head of admissions at London Business School. But today, my viewers, you've got Michelle and you've got Rachel. And I just love spending this time with both of them. Thank you to both of you. We look forward to connecting with you and finding out about your stories and your round 2 journey to business school. Thank you very much.